Okay, so tonight I would like to speak about something which is very elaborate, which made me do a lot of work, of research, to be sure that I was not thinking stupid things, and I wanted to be sure that I was right. I'm going to try to be as fast as possible. Unfortunately, it's going to be long, so I don't know how I'm going to do that. So I want to talk about the Doors' influence on Tok Tok and Mark Hollis. When we think Tok Tok, we don't automatically think of the Doors. It's not something that I would have thought in the 80s. But by listening to the two albums, Spirit of Eden and Laughingstock, it made me wonder. And then when I went back from the beginning, I started thinking that I had something. But anyway, I didn't invent anything. Mark Hollis himself in his interviews said several times that he was much more like the Doors, influenced by the Doors, and he had nothing to do with Duran Duran. I totally agree with him. I mean, I never saw the link between Duran Duran and Tok Tok. I'm sorry, but I don't get it. But for the Doors, it's much more obvious for me. You must know that I like the Doors a lot, that I've been painting about Jim Morrison and the Doors and the Who during 10 years, and I probably would be still doing it if in my life there was not a big change in 2005, and then I kind of lost the contact, I don't know how we say that, with my inspiration for the Doors and the Who, and I stopped painting about them. Then years later I started painting about Mark Hollis and Tok Tok. I'm not going to come back on that. You will find my videos related to that on my channel. Anyway, I am quite aware of the Doors' career, and especially about Jim Morrison. I know a lot. I even translated a guide which has been released not a very long time ago. My friend Rainer Modman, who wrote several books about the Doors. He met the Doors several times, of course not Jim Morrison. And also his very good friend Gilles Prémian, who is also a friend of mine, and who met Jim Morrison before his death in Paris. So I translated the guide. It's sold on Amazon. I will try to find the link. Just to let you know, it's a guide about the last days of Jim Morrison in Paris. Rainer tried to find exactly what Jim made did in Paris during his last days before dying. Of course, he's not going to tell you exactly how his death happened, because nobody knows except Agnès Varda, but she will never say how it happened. She said that she will never say it. But the guide is very interesting because you can really follow Jim Morrison during these last days. There are a lot of people witnessing to have seen him here and there, and places that I know in Paris. Actually, I used to live very close to where he was buried, and very close to where he's supposed to have died, in his apartment in Paris. Just to let you know, I don't get money for this guide. I've not been paid. I did that just for the pleasure of doing it, so I translated it from English to French, so the French people will be able to understand the book. It has been translated in many languages, and Rainer asked me if I was okay to translate it, and I said yes. I have a lot of sympathy for Jim Morrison, a lot of... it's someone that I understand, even though he was very dark and very depressed, and It's someone that I could understand by painting about him and his songs and his poetry. Don't ask me why, that is another story which is way too long. It's even more crazy than my sudden work on Mark Hollis, so I can't explain. Isn't it a song by The Who? I can't explain. Anyway, so the Doors' influence on Tok Tok and Mark Hollis. Yes, it does exist. Just one thing I want to say right away. I'm not saying that Tok Tok or Mark Hollis copied the Doors. Not at all. Absolutely not. Okay, sorry, phone call from my older son. And I forgot to put my mascara. Ooh. Sorry if my hair are like that. I have a fan which makes my hair up. I can't live without the fan. It's really too hot. So I was saying, yes, there is an influence of the Doors on Tok Tok and Mark Hollis. So I'm going to tell you what I found. I took notes, you see, that is my work. I have the feeling that I'm having an exam right now, you know. I've been working like if I was having an exam. Anyway, first thing, so I must tell you first how I proceeded. These are the 6 albums of Tok Tok and Mark Hollis. I listened to all of them, and I listened to the 6 albums of the Doors. I listened to all of them. So I was working, because I'm working in the day, you know, I'm not only doing that. So I was working and in the same time listening to all this music. And at a point it was kind of crazy, because I was working on Photoshop, on photos for objects that I'm selling on eBay, and I was so confused between the music and my work that I started naming my objects on Photoshop with the name of the songs in Spirit of Eden. So then I thought, okay, or I work or I listen to music, but it's difficult to do both in the same time. Well, usually I can listen to music when I work on Photoshop, but I had to listen deeply to see the links between the two. So it was complicated. Anyway, first I started chronologically. You must know that if you really want to find interesting links, you must follow me until the end of this video, because the most interesting things are rather at the end with the last albums. Not the Mark Hollis solo album, but Spirit of Eden and Laughingstock are, I think, the ones who are the most related to the Doors, according to me. However, on the album The Party's Over, you have the song The Party's Over. The party's over. I'll never love you, babe. There is a song of the Doors named When the Music's Over. When the music's over. So, the party's over. When the music's over. You know, I would have never thought of that if one day I took the Doors lyrics and I started to sing them on the Tok Tok song. And then I thought, oh, why do I do that? So of course there is the word over, the party's over, when the music's over, so that is the link. But even if you listen to the melody, it's not the same, but there is something. So I'm not saying that Mark Hollis did that purposely and that he copied the Doors. No, for sure there is no copy. I must be very clear about that. There is no copy. It's only details, small things that I see in the Tok Tok or Tok Tok songs. which remind me a little of the Doors. It's just small things. It's not copy. It's not what I call copying. Copying is something else. Okay, so we must be very clear about that. I think still that these two songs, The Party's Over and When the Music's Over, have something in common. I'm not saying that the songs mean the same thing. I'm mixing everything. I'm not saying that the meaning of the song is the same. No. I read the lyrics, it's something else. It's not the same thing. Maybe it's just me. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is the truth. It's only my vision. So I suggest ideas and you do whatever you want with it. I'm not saying that it's the truth. I'm not saying that for sure Mark Hollis thought of When the Music's Over. No. Maybe it happened just like that, randomly. Maybe he thought about it. I don't know. I don't know Mark Hollis. Okay. Another thing. It's not a similarity. It's just me. It makes me think. The song Hate, which is also on The Party's Over. The song Hate and the song The Unknown Soldier. The theme is not the same at all. Hate is one thing, The Unknown Soldier is another thing. It's just that both songs have something a little violent, a little angry, Hate is very punkish song, according to me. It has something punk. And The Unknown Soldier, it's a kind of a rebellion against the war in Vietnam. Every time I hear Hate, I didn't know why it was making me think of The Unknown Soldier, because the both songs are broken in different parts. And in both songs, the singer is really screaming loudly. So I saw a link, but it's in my imagination. I'm not saying that the two songs look alike. No, they don't. But I just wanted to say it. Another thing, the song Have You Heard the News? It was making me think of a song by The Doors. I couldn't find which one, but every time I hear Have You Heard the News, there is something in it which makes me think of The Doors. It has been very difficult to find what. I only found it this morning. There is a song named My Eyes Have Seen You by The Doors. So I thought of the two songs. They don't look alike. They are completely different. I don't like to read the news. And the other one is My Eyes Have Seen You. So not the same melody at all. But one is speaking about hearing. The other one speaks about seeing. And if you know the song Have You Heard the News, it's really explained like if we are watching a scene. Like if we are spectator of something, of an accident. Something happened and we are watching it. The lyrics are very almost like an article which says what happened. In My Eyes I've Seen You, Jim Morrison wrote this song when he was on a roof of a building. He used to sleep on a roof on Venice Beach. The roof of a building named Morrison Building. If you go to Venice Beach, try to find the Morrison Building. He was sleeping on the roof of that building. And he was seeing people passing on the sidewalk on Venice Beach. My eyes have seen you. My eyes have seen you. And it's how he wrote the song, My Eyes Have Seen You. So he was spectator of a scene too. That's probably why Have You Heard the News makes me think of My Eyes Have Seen You. I wanted to say it, but the two songs are different, not the same melodies, not the same lyrics. For the album It's My Life, I found nothing, no comment point, nothing. The album It's My Life is so much talk. How to explain that? For me, It's My Life is the album which symbolizes talk. And It's My Life has a strong talk identity, I think. There is something very talk in this album, very, as I was imagining talk in the 80s. That's probably why that album worked so well too. I didn't find anything which was making me think of the Doors in It's My Life. Probably why I wouldn't have thought of the Doors in the 80s by listening to Talk. Then we arrive to The Color of Spring. It's when it starts again being a little to that direction. That's probably what Mark Hollis wanted. He wanted to go to what he liked, you know. So what does he like? He likes jazz. He probably likes blues. I'm not saying what he likes now, I'm talking about what he liked then. He liked roots, American music. Roots, yes. Very bluesy, jazz, things like that. So in The Color of Spring, there is the song Living in Another World, nothing to do with the Doors, except that there is an harmonica. When I think harmonica, I think blues. When I think blues, I think LA Woman and I think of the Doors. That's why I see Talk going a little in the direction of the Doors in The Color of Spring. Then you have the song Give It Up, which is really bluesy, very bluesy, so it reminds me something of the Doors. Gotta give it up. Gotta give a second chance. Chameleon Day, also nothing to do with the Doors. Chameleon Day. It makes me think of the poetry Horse Latitude that Jim Morrison is saying on an album. I will write in the description box all the songs I'm talking about with in what album it is, because if I have to search on my video it's going to last forever, so I will give you all the information in the description box below. So Horse Latitude, actually it's not a song, it's Jim Morrison saying a poetry. True sailing is dead. Why it makes me think of that? It's because in The Color of Spring, I think that Chameleon Day was already a piece which was the premise of Spirit of Eden. So somehow Mark Hollis did what he wanted on The Color of Spring with this song. And it's exactly what Jim Morrison did on the album where he put Horse Latitude, because what he wanted, it was reading poetry, and that's what he did. So that's why I see a conjunction, something, a link between the both things. Probably, you know, this video forced me to think hard about why do I see links and where are they. Now I know. It's incredible how the mind works. Let's go to Spirit of Eden. Sorry for the wind. So Spirit of Eden reminds me a lot the 60s, 70s. So the period when Jim Morrison started and ended, because he died in 1971, July the 3rd. So I Believe in You speaks basically about what killed Jim Morrison, because you must know Jim Morrison had of course a problem of drugs and alcohol. He chiefly had a problem of alcohol. Drugs was just the cherry on the top, but at the end it was much more a problem of alcohol. The problem is that I think, if I'm right, and I'm not sure I'm right, that he died because he took some heroin without knowing it was heroin, because he was never taking heroin. And of course it killed him because he was not used to it. He overdosed, probably, very probably. Somehow the song, I believe in You, speaks about what killed Jim Morrison, at least in my mind. That's why I'm thinking of Jim Morrison when I hear this song. I just can't bring myself to see you starting. I precise that Mark Hollis didn't take drugs, just to be sure that you know that. The song Desire is very bluesy, very 60s, 70s. There is an organ in it, and also an harmonica, which of course reminds me of the Doors. It doesn't mean that the song Desire is like another song of the Doors. It's just that the feeling makes me think of that period and the kind of instruments that the Doors were using. Wealth, there is an organ too, same thing. It reminds me really, probably not the same organ as used Raymond Zarek, but the sound is very similar. Really, it reminds me that period. You must know that the Doors were absolutely not a flower power. It was not their style. They were much more rock, blues, much more underground, maybe more Velvet Underground than any flower power hippie style band. Jim Morrison himself said that he was not feeling being a part of the flower power movement, peace and love, you know. No, it was not him, not so much. John Cope. So John Cope, I already did a video about it, because there is a part in John Cope, and of course I will include the small parts of music to show you. Which reminds me Riders on the Storm. So here, I'm not the only one to have said so. I read in an article that a journalist had the same feeling as I do, so I think I'm not completely wrong. And I really think that in John Cope, I don't know, maybe it was Tim Frizz Green and maybe it was not Mark Hollis, but I really think that they wanted to give a feeling, the Riders on the Storm, in this song. I can't believe that they didn't think about it. No, I wouldn't believe it. So I would say that Spirit of Eden is carrying, like in the Doors music, is carrying a kind of pain. It's very sad. It's very painful, suffering, a kind of suffering. That's what I perceive in the both. Maybe it's my imagination, I don't know, but that's what I feel. Then we arrive to Laughingstock. So Laughingstock is the most obvious. Oh, John Cope, it was not in Spirit of Eden, but it was the B-side of I Believe in You. So you will find John Cope on the album A-Sides, B-Sides, which is a compilation. But so that's why I talk about it in the Spirit of Eden part. It's because it's related to Spirit of Eden, even if it's not in the Spirit of Eden album, I precise. Okay, let's go to Laughingstock now. Laughingstock is probably the one which is the most obvious in that direction. Really. So at the beginning of Ascension Day, there is something which makes me think of that period too. Also makes There is something of Janis Joplin also. But you know, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, same period, they died. Maybe not the same year, but I don't remember if she died in 1970 or 1971, but it was very close, and she died in Los Angeles, in a place where I went. All that was the same period and the same, we say mouvance in French, the movement, I would say, same spirit. After the flood. So After the flood has nothing to do with the Doors, except that when I listen to After the Flood, I see some water running. I feel a movement which goes straight, it goes, a movement which never stops, with a repetition. Very hypnotic song. I made a video about After the Flood, actually, also. It's something that I feel in LA Woman, except that in LA Woman the movement is not water, it's faster, and you have the feeling to be in a car in Los Angeles. I am a LA woman. I can tell you that the song LA Woman is perfect in Los Angeles when you are driving, and there is this movement, like, if it doesn't stop. LA Woman, Sunday afternoon. Except for the mojo rising. The mojo rising. Mr. Mojo rising. I would say the beginning is very like that. Tapehead. So Tapehead has a very slight Spanish feeling, very slight. So of course I think about Spanish Caravan, but I can't make a comparison because the song Spanish Caravan by the Doors is not completely written by the Doors. I think there is a part which is a classical piece in it, I think I'm right. So it's just a feeling for Tapehead. Newgrass, so that's when it becomes more interesting. Newgrass, if you go to the part which starts at 2 minutes 50 seconds about. The guitar, I don't know if they used a bottleneck. Bottleneck is something you put on your finger and you play by a certain way. I'm not a specialist, so don't ask me, but search on internet bottleneck and you will see what it is. Actually, it's a bottleneck, but to play on the guitar. It was making me think of something of the Doors all the time, and I was wondering what, and I found it this morning. It's the song End of the Night. So the two songs are completely different, but the way it's played, the guitar and this kind of bottleneck effect in Newgrass makes me think of probably the guitar with a bottleneck effect on End of the Night. Rooney, so this one is the most obvious. So this one, no, I'm not imagining, I'm sure. And I'm sure that Mark Hollis knew what he was doing when he did it. In Rooney, listen to Rooney. So then there is something of Rooney in the end, the song The End by the Doors. So the song The End by the Doors is on the first album, The Doors. And Rooney is the last song of the last album by Tok Tok. I'm always wondering if Mark Hollis was not telling us that it was the end, with the end of this album. was the last song by Tuk Tuk, last song on the last album, and it looks like the end by the Doors. So I'm absolutely positively sure that Mark Hollis did that purposely. It was a message he was giving us. It was a clue to tell us this is the end. And I don't know if people understood that, but that's what I understand. Maybe it's just me. If you listen to Indian Summer, I found a common point with Rooney and Indian Summer too. Indian Summer is in the Morrison Hotel album by the Doors. Indian Summer is a song by the Doors. I will write everything, don't worry. So there is a song of the Doors named The Changeling, and in the Changeling he says, see me change, see me change. And see me change makes me think of Mark Hollis. Every time I hear the song The Changeling, see me change, see me change, I think of Mark Hollis, so it's not an inspiration, it's just me. I hear a song of the Doors and it makes me think of Mark Hollis. I actually made a video about that, so I didn't just discover that. There is another song by the Doors named Been Down So Long. Well, I've been down so goddamn long that it looks like up to me. Okay. He says, set me free in the song, and set me free. So, and it's funny because in Welsh, Mark Hollis says, take my freedom. Take my freedom. So I thought that is a very strong contrast between Jim Morrison, who says, set me free, and Mark Hollis, who says in Welsh, take my freedom. Yeah. You know, Jim Morrison is dinosaurs. He takes everything, he did everything, love, alcohol, drugs, everything, dance, songs. And Mark Hollis is like an angel, a saint who gives to others. It's really kind of a redemption. I don't know. Well, that's my imagination probably. Okay. Then there is another thing. The Doors, their first album called The Doors. So The Doors by The Doors. The Doors by The Doors. And then you have Mark Hollis by Mark Hollis. So that is the first album he made as being himself, I mean not with Tuk Tuk. But he called his album by his name. He did like the Doors when they started. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe my imagination. But still, last thing, the solo album. Nothing about the Doors. I didn't find anything which reminded me about the Doors. This is really a Mark Hollis album. It's really him. It's him. It's 100% him. So, of course, he's inspired by other things, but not by the Doors. I don't think so. No. I think, you know, when we create, we are always inspired by something. Always. Even sometimes we are not even conscious about it. But there is nothing new under the sun. We are always influenced by things, sometimes without even knowing it. So basically that's all what I noted. I probably forgot things. If you found other things which reminds you of the Doors, please tell me in the comment. I will be glad to know. If you don't agree about something I said, please, I love talking about that. You know, I really wanted to talk about this influence because I think that Mark Hollis is really very underrated. and people didn't understand where he was coming from, and they were imagining him by a certain way. And when he started showing his true color, people didn't understand. He was always like that from the very beginning. The problem is that the people imagined him by a certain way, and he was not like that. Now, years later, we start to understand really what he was about. Okay, so I see you very soon. Bye bye, bye bye.